Today we are saying starting in the working world can be an absolute adventure for young people. And to speak to us a little bit more about this in studio this morning, very, very privileged to have Mr. Allan Pike. He is the CEO of the Key Recruitment Group. Mr. Pike, good morning and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Khadija. I think that glass of water will be handy just now. Thank you very much.
We'll get that to you shortly, Mr. Pike. But yes, of course, when we speak about career exploration, and you heard us speaking about this in our introduction, we know the matriculants are writing. We know there's many, many writing exams, even at tertiary level.
Yes.
But what you've said to us when we started this conversation is that planning for careers needs to start a lot earlier than post-degree.
Absolutely. I think far too many young people only begin their job search after they've left school. And they haven't actually even given a thought to the concept of work after school or after university or wherever it is. But I think that people should be taking stock of who they are long before then. They should be thinking about what it is that they enjoy doing. What are the activities that they generally enjoy? You know, well, look, we all enjoy a sort of a handful of candy floss or something like that. But that's not the issue. The issue is, what do you enjoy doing? What are the activities that you perform on a day-to-day that give you some pleasure, or you have a sense of pleasure? And not only that, a sense that somebody says to you, thank you, because you've actually done that job quite well. And usually the things that you do well, you actually also enjoy. So we always say, what do you enjoy doing? That's a very practical step to be thinking around. What do you enjoy doing on a day-to-day in your activities? And you can think about it within the school context. You can think about, is it your role to participate actively in discussions and debates? Is that your role? Do you find yourself excited and enthused by that activity of participation? And if you get that sense that that's what you enjoy doing, then maybe you should be thinking around a career that's going to involve that kind of strategic participation, thinking, thought leadership, those sort of activities. And you should be thinking about that before you finished school. Because that will also guide you in your choice of subjects going into university or Technikon or whatever. If you actually enjoy working with your dad in the garage, you enjoy fixing things, and you get a thrill out of seeing him switch that key on and the motor goes, that is exciting. And you should be really thinking about spending your time, building and fixing things. I think that way too many of our young people are distracted by images of people with open fires and coffee on the fire, on the braai, whatever the case, in the bush, and they think, okay, right, I want to be an engineer, civil engineer. But then, they get to the age of 25 and they meet a young lady and their next job is in Lesotho. And all of a sudden, that job is no longer so appealing anymore. So it's quite important that you really find your space. The reality is that if you enjoy engineering and the design and the work hours and everything, you got to find out everything there is about your career decision, and you should be thinking about that early on. What I have also found is that young people pick up information by experience. So how do you get experience before you've actually moved into the world of work? Well, you get experience working for a Vidai cafe or a Mug and Bean, or you get an experience by packing shelves at the local Pick and Pay, or whatever the case may be. That's where you find your way. You find your way by taking practical steps to get some work experience. And the business people in the community should be aware that young people need a start. So, if there's an opportunity for a young person, as an example, yeah, I was probably about 12 years old when I got my first job in a delicatessen. And I'll never forget, it was Dixon's Delicatessen in East London, on the Quigney in East London. And I got this job for Mr. Luck, was his name. And I loved working in a retail environment. I learned to take stock. I need to learn to count things. I learned to speak to customers and have conversations with customers. And it's amazing how much information you gain from just being active in that. And so getting going earlier rather than later is the important thing. And both my daughters, the one worked at Mug and Bean as a what do they call them, runners, where they pick up plates and take it to the kitchen. That's what she did for the first 3 months of her work. And I think she probably was about 14. And certainly the other girl was running up and down steps at some place where they were serving breakfast and carrying plates and taking all the risks and making the mistakes and learning that mistakes happen, and just amazingly in being engaged with customers and patrons that are in these places, and they talk to you. People share. The next thing, where do you work, or what school are you at? And they'll be asking you about these things and building conversation with you in those conversations. Children learn, or young people learn about what's going on in this world. And they get a sense of confidence that, big people are not oaks. You can talk to them, and they do listen and they do hear. So there's a lot of things that can happen in those early stages of thinking about what you're going to do next year. The worst thing to do is just sit at home and do nothing. That is absolutely the worst thing. The other thing I would encourage is sport. And I know that, this community is crazy about cricket and soccer and everything else. But those sports are vital to the well-being of a of a young person coming in. In the team sports, you learn to play as a team and work as a team and work together, and you learn about different personalities. So, as I say, the worst thing is not to participate and be active in environments that you learn so much from.
Allan, what I'm hearing now from what you're saying, and oftentimes we do think about when we plan for your career, and of course schooling is absolutely vital. It's important. It's training ground for many for our careers essentially. But what I'm hearing from you is that ought not to just be the focus. I'm hearing part-time jobs, going outside the school, going outside the home. I'm listening to you speak about sports. I'm listening to you saying that we are often so focused on what's happening in school and our strengths there, and focusing on that we forget to develop these other absolutely essential life skills, like as you mentioned, developing confidence, being able to converse with people, being able to problem solve in other spaces beyond these protected spaces. Would that be fair to say?
That's a very interesting take on it, Khadija. I would say that you're probably 100% correct. I think that young people have so much to learn from life, from just living and not being focused exclusively on what they're doing at school and studying at school. And I think the parents have got a role to play in that too. They ought to be mindful of the fact that it's not about, at the end of the day, it's very, my view on life generally is that we actually control nothing. You have no control over anything. At the ultimate end, the only thing you can take responsibility for is what's in front of you. Yes, you can work hard. You can work hard with your numbers, but the outcome of that is actually not in your hands. You can do your best to sell a product, but the outcome of that is not in your hands. The outcome is actually sitting in somebody else's hands. Somebody else has to make the decision. Okay, I'll buy it. So what we need to do is to learn to work diligently. And in my business, we have a mantra. It's a simple mantra. It's do the right thing, even if it hurts. In life, do the right thing, even if it hurts. And sometimes, those decisions are tough decisions to take. Very recently, we had to contemplate for a moment quite a big deal. It was an American company that had got hold of us, and they were wanting us to provide them with a lot of personnel resources. But I just didn't like the way the guy talked. I mean, he sounded too much. I'm not getting political, but I just didn't like the man's behavior and his style of conversation. And me and my partner decided that we didn't want to put people into that type of business where you have that kind of leadership with those sense of ethics and just his behavior, the way he spoke and the language and the expectations he had. Thought, no ways are we going to build it. And so we had to make a decision that said we're not going to do that, which was very costly to us.
Of course.
But those things you make, those decisions around it. Anyway, back to work, back to young people. I think that it's very important for young people to grow up and experience life in a broader sense, and as you say, it's not just about the school. It's also about thinking about what after school, and parents shouldn't be too cautious about allowing their young people to go and get work. Look, I mean, we all had to get up at 10:30 at night and go and fetch our children who were at knocking off work.
Yes.
I mean, that's what we do. That's what parents do, and that's part of the job. But those children are young people are getting experience. Those young people are getting experience, and it's vital to them because it helps them to formulate their ideas for the future. Somebody might say the last thing they want to do is as accounting. My daughter, for example, just hates accounting. I mean, it's the worst thing. I've always said to her, she can do anything if she puts her mind to it. She can. She's very capable. But, for me to ask her to do an accounting job, it would kill her. It's just not for her. So, but she knows that she's very good at strategy. She knows she's very good at helping management plan. She's the sort of person, if I have a quandrum in business, and she's 39 years old today, but if I go to her, I speak to her, and she's the one that I go to give me a perspective on this strategic plan that we've got going, and she's the one that'll pick holes in it and ask me to give consideration, and then tell me, no, I think you need to do this before you can get there. So those things young people learn in day-to-day engagement in life, and so I would not be exclusively focused to the schoolwork. Schoolwork's important. You've got to get through your studies. You've got to get to university. You don't get into university until your scores are right. So you've got to get that right. But you've got to be thinking about the future in terms of selecting your subject lines.
This morning, speaking to Mr. Allan Pike, who is the CEO of Key Recruitment Group. And we started a new series, which is all about career exploration. This morning, we are particularly focusing on the younger age group from age 16 to 18. Now, before the break, Allan has been speaking to us about how one ought to start young. And yes, indeed, it can be an adventure. But of course, to also not, schooling is incredibly important. We know this, but then also to look beyond, and for us as parents, and let's say those are the caregivers, those are the in supporting capacities, to understand the value that younger people can gain from other spaces, and so going perhaps into part-time work, playing sports, and other spaces also develop areas of interest, or maybe Allan, one realizes, makes you discover areas of interest that you may not know you have, or skills, strengths that you may not know you have. We know that our schooling and our education system, in many ways, it focuses on very narrow aspects, and one of the critiques around it is always that it's almost like a one-size-fits-all situation. So the creative may not always feel that he or she has strengths or weak, because that it wouldn't necessarily be highlighted. And so yes, to understand, to do the self-assessment, to understand, as you said, what your passions are and how you could potentially translate that into a career. It's early for us to explore that from a young age.
Early to explore that from a young age. I think one should deliberately take cognizance of the things that you really enjoy doing. I mean, let's take. I think that the biggest threat to young people is the influence that others have on their decision. It may be that you see an image, or you see or you hear somebody else give you some sort of idea around what you should be doing. I think it's very important for young people to make up their own minds about what it is that they want to do. I've seen it in my own grandchildren who are just naturally gifted in different ways. My eldest grandson, I could see from the very beginning, this guy is going to be an entertainer. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure where he's going to be entertaining or how he's going to get into that, but he is such an entertainer. He just loves dancing and show acting and putting those things together, and he's forever got a blank book in front of him, and he's going to be singing, and he just loves that kind of activity. The other one just loves kicking a ball from a young age. The first thing he wanted to do was kick a ball, and cars. It was just so different, but both boys with diverse interests, and we should be encouraging our children in the areas of their interest. We really, really should. So I think when it comes to developing what it is that you want to do, and then once you've got that, I think it's important for you to keep your North Star. You know where you're going.
Keep focused.
You need to be focused. That's what you want to do. And forever you will pursue that. And you have to be philosophically in your own mind geared to do that. The worst thing to do is to, prophesy against yourself and say, I'll never get there, or I won't get there, it's not for me, how am I ever going to get there? That sort of negative speak, if you eventually, the negative speak will have an impact on you. So you must not speak negatively over what it is that you want to do, but rather speak positively and be looking for opportunities to learn. I know that there are all kinds of people. Nurses are there's a huge demand for nurses, but nurses shouldn't be a job that you just do to get some pay, get a paycheck. Being a nurse requires a compassionate disposition. It requires a disposition that is really interested in the well-being of somebody else and helping that person to be as comfortable as possible. Of course, then it takes you down a whole, learning career in terms of learning about the whole biomechanics of the human body. And I think that, you've got to learn all those sort of skills. But, and then making that decision, it comes when you find yourself having some pleasure in helping somebody.
Yeah.
You're in bandaging somebody's arm up and securing them and seeing them feel more comfortable. You get pleasure from that. Then you understand that could be your call. So you need to be mindful of that. So exploring various careers is a very, very important thing, and it's usually triggered by what it is that you enjoy.
Yeah.
And what you find that you're pretty good at. So, and those things usually reveal themselves at school. You may be the person that leads the laboratory research work. You love getting involved, mixing chemicals, and you get excited by that, and it stimulates you. It stimulates you. On the other hand, you may really enjoy digging in and interrogating figures and being more of an auditor type of person. But these are skills you can learn. So every time you get a sense, there's enough information in the world on the internet to find out what kind of jobs will require a skill that I've got, which is this or that or that.
Yeah,
And you can do the research on it. There's so much information available to you on the internet to give you some direction around that. So exploring careers is important. Then exploring the opportunity to get experience, that's another thing. So, I think that it's wonderful for a young person to pick up a letter or a writing pad and write a note to the local civil engineering office or to the local municipality or to the local whatever HR department and tell them that, about yourself. You tell them, first of all, you've discovered that you have a great interest in this type of work, and you seem to be quite good at putting these sort of plans together and doing this and that, and you would be interested to just do some shadow work and get some experience, just some exposure. You don't want to take anybody's time, so it's not interested, but just to be able to work in an environment, and it's be remarkable how many people will actually bring you into their workspace and allow you to come get experience. So being enthusiastic about what it is that you want to do, going after what it is that you want to do is very important. As I said, the worst thing you can do is sit at home and do nothing.
Yeah. And I think that's really an important part of it, that the idea of what these passions are and how you could potentially translate it into a career, but to also be realistic, as you mentioned now, for example, so being a nurse. So in all probability, you're not going to make buckets and buckets of money.
Yeah.
But there's other parts of you that it's going to appeal to. So innately, you ought to be somebody who's compassionate, somebody who's kind, somebody who wants to, for example, be of benefit to others, which of course, we're speaking about the essential humanity here. And then, of course, somebody who looks at or wants to become an engineer, but also again be realistic. If your maths marks are not up to par, now we're focusing on the school. So no matter how good you are with your hands, if your maths marks are not up to standard, you're probably not going to get into university to get those to pursue that degree. So it really is something holistic. And I would imagine that part of our job as parents, as caregivers, is to also guide our children then through this.
Absolutely.
So that they can be realistic, as you say, about these passions, translating that into a career option, these skills that one has, a set of interests, etc., and supporting them and helping them into how this can translate into realistic career goals.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, confusion and delusion
very close
exists in all ages. People are can be persuaded by the talk that if they've got a degree, that's it, they made. But the reality is that that's not the case. Just having a degree doesn't qualify you for anything really. Except, of course, if it's a medical degree, then it maybe qualifies you to start your road as a medical practitioner. Whether you complete that road is dependent on you at the end of the day. I coined a phrase many years ago. It was simply this: it's your education and training and development and position may define what you are, but who you are defines what you become. The character of the individual is critical to the process. So if you demonstrate a willingness, and if you demonstrate an enthusiasm, and if you demonstrate a measure of initiative, you will not be struggling for a career in the days to come. So take the initiative, write letters to the companies that are doing the sort of thing that you would like to learn about, Ask them for an opportunity to come in and spend time there. It's a bit of a lottery. Not everybody's going to welcome you with open arms and receive you in, but there's going to be one that likes the way you've written the letter, and they will invite you in. So you may have to write, 100 letters, but you only need one opportunity. So don't stop, because if the moment you stop, it prevents you from writing the next letter, which could be the letter that's going to invite you in. So you just keep being persistent, you keep going at it, and somebody will give you that opportunity that you're looking for.
What you mentioned there, and I think implicit in what you mentioned, is actually something incredibly important that one from a young age needs to start realizing, that what we perceive to be rejection is part of the process of life. So we often see it as something personal. Oh my God, now they didn't accept me, or they think I'm not good enough, etc. En dan is ons verpletterd. I mean, then you really feel defeated and depleted, and now I want to give up.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why I say implicit in what you're saying, that's such an incredibly important life skill.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be resilient.
Absolutely. Resilience. You've got to develop resilience. But the important thing it really is a lottery. This person doesn't know you. They've got a CV in front of them. They look at your CV. They don't know you. They haven't got a iota about you. They're not rejecting you. They're just saying, I can't use this.
On paper,
I can't use this right now. Mm-hmm. So it's just this piece of paper that they're putting aside. So the next guy that you write to might say, oh, this piece of paper looks perfect for me. And so it's very important. People should not be discouraged when pursuing that first opportunity. It's vital. The other thing is, but being aware of who you are is where it starts. What it is that you have to offer, what it is that you really enjoy doing. Figure it out. Take note of the activities that you've generally enjoyed. If you're not one for getting involved in discussions, or if you are one for getting involved in discussions, and you're the one that always says, yes, but what about? Then you've got to understand that you're that quality controller. You're always looking for this, and you're always looking for a better way of doing things. So it's important for people to start picking up on who they really are as individuals, and to pursue careers that will feed off those skills, really. And in that, honestly, it works for them, because those skills are there, and they will result in something, and it will be a positive outcome for them in their lives. So not to go with what their friends say,
yes,
but to go with what they say. What is it that they want to do? Because people, I'll never forget when I was a young man, very young. I did an apprenticeship, and that's where I started on the South African Railways at the time as a fitter. And I'll never forget that all my friends were becoming shipping clerks, and I was thinking, because shipping clerks seemed to be the big thing at the day. I don't know why, but it was either the bank or shipping clerks. Well, I'm glad I didn't land up in a bank or a shipping clerk. And the practical things that people learn when you do an apprenticeship. Most times for the rest of your life, until you get very old, like I am right now, you don't have to call in an artisan to come fix your stuff. You do it yourself.
Yeah.
But I've always found that to be extremely beneficial. The other thing is that people get persuaded by the notion of being a manager. Everybody wants to be a manager.
In charge.
They want to be in charge. And I'll never forget, I interviewed a guy once, and he was an engineer, a really, really, really good engineer, top class. I think his name was Johan. I'll just say that. I think his name was Johan. And I interviewed this guy, and I was so amazed at the enthusiasm that this man expressed when he showed me some of the work that he had done as an engineer, and the designs he had done. Yet, and after at the end of our conversation, I said, Johan, so why are you talking to me? as an executive recruiter, what do you want from me? And I said, he said, well, what I want is I want to be a manager. I said, goodness me, yeah, you've just described this role that you do with such enthusiasm. Do you know what you're going to go into to be a manager? You know what that's going to do? I think, to be honest, what your passion is what you're doing, and you should stay with that. Being a manager isn't all cut out or isn't all what it's cut out to be. It can be very challenging. So management isn't all the all in all.
No, and I think implicit again in what you are saying is it links back to what we spoke about earlier on, the importance of job shadowing and understanding what a particular role entails. And so if one has a particular role, a particular career option in mind, to be sure that you know, well, of course, one won't be able to know exactly, but what your day would entail. And so perhaps just in our last 2 minutes, Allan, speak to us just a little bit, and suppose your closing comments, or to put together what the really pertinent points in as far as starting young when it comes to exploring careers.
Okay, so when it comes to getting that experience in the early stage, when it comes to getting experience at the early stage, you've got to take note of what it is that you enjoy doing. Do not listen to your friends. Don't let them tell you what you want to do. Because the going thing. You may be suited to being a developer, because IT is the big thing. So maybe you're that kind of guy. Maybe you don't need to speak to people. Maybe you better with a screen and programming and all the rest of it. Maybe that's where you find yourself. Then that's where you should go. Go where your heart says you need to go, because that's where you'll have the most fun. And when you're having fun, you're doing the best work. So that's all I have to say on that.
Well, and as you said right at the beginning, if you do what you enjoy, then it's something that you really want to also get better at. Allan, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll of course continue this discussion next week, Tuesday. Go well.
Thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure.